Okay, so you've sent over some really interesting stuff all about handling those, negative thoughts we all get and trying to make our inner dialogue a bit more
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Yeah, specifically that YouTube chat with Mel Robbins and Dr. Ethan Kross. He's got some great insights.
Definitely. So let's get into it. We're diving deep into this whole world of self-talk, right? That voice inside our heads.
That's it. Understanding it, maybe even dieting it a bit. And like Dr. Cross points out, it's going pretty fast in there, like surprisingly fast.
Yeah, we'll get to that speed later.
Mm-hmm.
And for you listening, the idea here is to pull out strategies you can actually use, things that work, without needing a psychology degree to understand them.
Exactly. Our mission, let's call it, is to really boil down the best bits from Dr. Cross, especially to help you maybe turn that inner critic into more of an inner coach, and get a handle on worry.
And Dr. Cross isn't just anyone. I mean, this guy's credentials are solid. Psychologist, neuroscientist.
25 years doing this research?
Professor at University of Michigan, runs the Emotion and Self-Control Lab there. His work's in Science, the New England Journal of Medicine.
Yeah, top tier. And he wrote Chatter and Shift, those bestsellers. So this is really grounded stuff.
Definitely science-backed.
And he kind of lays out 3 main things we can expect to learn, which we'll explore. How to coach that inner critic.
Oh?
How to get out of those worry loops, ruminations.
Yeah, the rumination.
Yeah, the spirals.
Right, and getting some actual tools to manage emotions, like how intense they feel and how long they stick around.
Okay, let's start there then. One of the first things that jumped out at me was this idea that, look, worrying, ruminating, hearing that inner critic, it's just normal.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that. It's part of being human.
Yeah.
And interestingly, feeling bad about feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
That can actually make things worse.
Right. That second layer of negativity.
Exactly. And he makes the point that, these negative emotions, they evolved for a reason. They can be useful in the right doses. That's actually quite comforting.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off trying to be relentlessly positive.
Mm-hmm.
Then he makes this really key point. There's no magic bullet, no single technique that works for absolutely everyone with this stuff.
Right. It's not one size fits all. He says the trick is to learn about different tools, different approaches, and then figure out what combination works best for you. A bit like, physical fitness.
Okay, like building your own personal mental toolkit.
Exactly.
He even shared that personal story, which I found really relatable, about getting caught in that worry spiral.
Oh, with his daughter?
Yeah, when his younger daughter was applying to the same school as his older one.
Yeah.
And suddenly, bam, all this worry about social comparison, all the what ifs.
Yeah, it shows how easily we can fall into that, doesn't it?
Right.
Brainstorming worst case scenarios, we all do it.
Totally. It connects to that whole negativity biases thing, right? That idea from psychology that bad stuff just hits us harder than good stuff.
Precisely. Bad is stronger than good, psychologically speaking. It's evolutionary. Paying attention to threats kept us alive.
Makes sense. But sometimes that wiring gets a bit hyperactive in the modern world.
Well, yeah, and that's why understanding how our self-talk actually works is so vital, and the stat he gives is just mind-blowing.
The speed.
Yeah. Our internal chatter runs at something like 4,000 words per minute.
Wait, 4,000 words a minute? That's like reading the first Harry Potter book in under 20 minutes.
I know. It's incredible. But he explains we often think in these, sound bites that have a lot of meaning packed into them.
Ah, okay. So it's not literally full sentences racing past.
Not necessarily. But it feels like a bombardment when it's negative, right? That mental pinball machine thing.
Definitely. Which is why he mentions things like expressive writing, getting it down on paper.
Exactly. It helps organize those thoughts, stops the pinballing a bit. So the goal isn't to, switch off the inner voice entirely.
Because it actually does useful things for us.
Absolutely. He outlines 4 key functions. First, just basic memorization. Repeating a phone number, a grocery list in your head.
Yep, do that all the time.
Second, simulation and planning. Rehearsing a presentation mentally, planning a trip, thinking through a difficult conversation.
The mental packing. Yeah, I totally do that. Run through the scenarios.
Third is control and motivation.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned with exercise, that internal battle.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Part of me is going, ugh, stop. And the other part is trying to be the coach. Come on, you can do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even find myself using you internally.
Well, there you go. That's interesting because that actually links to one of the tools he suggests later. But yeah, using that voice to push yourself, or even, as you said, playfully arguing with the instructor in your head.
Guilty. Okay, so memorization, planning, motivation. What's the fourth?
The fourth, and he says this is maybe the most profound, is making sense of things. creating stories, narratives about our experiences, figuring out who we are. It shapes our identity.
Wow. Okay, so it's doing a lot, from remembering milk to figuring out life's big questions.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool.
An invaluable multi-purpose tool, yeah.
But then there's the flip side. When that tool starts working against us,
And that's what he calls chatter. That's the term for when the inner voice goes negative. The loops, the self-criticism, getting stuck,
and we know what that feels like. It
Yeah.
messes with your thinking, your performance,
your relationships.
your health.
Yeah. And he mentioned people are often hesitant to even admit it's happening. There's like a shame around it.
Definitely. Like, you should be in control of your own mind, so admitting you're struggling feels like, well, a failure.
Okay, so this chatter, what forms does it usually take?
He breaks it down into 3 main types. First, rumination. That's getting stuck looping over the past.
Regrets, mistakes, why did I say that?
Exactly. Things you can't change.
Yeah.
He says it often happens when our sense of the world being orderly and safe gets challenged. We just zoom in on the problem and can't seem to resolve it.
Mentally stuck on repeat.
And it literally drains your mental energy. He uses this analogy of chatter being like a sponge soaking up the resources in your prefrontal cortex, your brain's control center.
Leaving less room for everything else.
Mm.
Okay, so rumination is about the past. What else? Second is worry. That's getting stuck in the future. The endless negative what-if loops.
The catastrophe planning department of the brain working overtime.
Pretty much. And the third is self-beratement. That's the harsh inner critic.
Calling yourself names, you idiot, you're worthless.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, really harsh self-judgment.
Okay. And again, experiencing this stuff is normal, but it's the intensity and duration that becomes a problem.
Right, when it gets loud and persistent.
So how do we tackle it? If there's no magic wand, what's the approach?
It comes back to that toolkit idea, having a range of strategies, not just relying on one thing.
Right, because what works today might not work tomorrow, or what works for me might not work for you.
Exactly. He mentioned that COVID-19 anxiety study, people who used a combination of coping tools did better overall.
Interesting. Except for journaling, you mentioned that.
Well, journaling was effective on its own, but people just didn't use it as much.
Why not? Too much effort.
Probably effort and maybe that vulnerability factor. Putting it all down on paper can feel exposed.
Yeah, I get that. But he did give a specific journaling prompt that sounded helpful.
Yes. Just write continuously for 15 or 20 minutes about your deepest thoughts and feelings. Don't worry about grammar, spelling, just get it out. The idea is it helps shape the chaos into a story. A beginning, middle, end. It organizes it.
Organizes the mental mess. Okay, so we have this powerful inner voice, but no user manual came with it.
Pretty much, which is why learning these tools is so important.
Let's get into tool #1 then. Distance self-talk. What's that about?
This one's fascinating. It's literally talking to yourself using your own name or using you.
Instead of I.
Yeah. So instead of, I feel overwhelmed, you might think, your name, you can handle this, or what should you do next? It creates psychological distance.
Like you're talking to a friend. It reminds me of that saying, it's easier to give advice than take it. Solomon's paradox, he called it.
Exactly that. We're often wiser when advising others. Distance self-talk kind of hacks into that. It shifts you into that advisor mode for yourself, puts some guardrails on the negativity.
Can you give an example? Like, if I'm beating myself up over a mistake.
Okay. Instead of I'm such an idiot, you'd switch to, okay, your name, everyone makes mistakes. You've learned from things like this before. What's the lesson here? How can you move forward? It's more constructive, more compassionate.
That feels different already, just hearing it phrased that way.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mr. Rogers doing this.
Yeah. In his journal, apparently, when he was having doubts, he shifted from I statements of worry to talking to himself, like encouragingly, using his name.
Wow. If it's good enough for Mr. Rogers. Okay. Tool #2. Rituals.
Right. Now, rituals sometimes get a bad rap, but he means these simple, structured sequences of behavior, things you do in a specific order.
Like athletes' pregame routines.
Yeah.
Or spiritual practices.
Exactly, those kinds of things. The point is, they create a sense of order and control.
Which is the opposite of how chatter often feels chaotic, out of control.
Precisely. It taps into this thing called compensatory control. When things feel messy inside, creating order outside helps compensate. Like cleaning or organizing when you're stressed. You mentioned you do that.
Oh my God, yes. When my brain's spinning, I have to tidy something. I never connected it like that, imposing external order to soothe internal chaos.
Well, now you know. You can actually Like weaponize that tendency. Consciously tidy up or organize your desk when chatter kicks in, knowing why it helps.
That's brilliant. Even making a to-do list fits here, maybe.
Absolutely. It organizes, it constrains the mental swirl. Just, don't get too rigid with the lists.
Okay, so external order helps internal calm. Tool #3.
Mental time travel. Our minds do this naturally anyway, drifting to the past or future. We can use that deliberately.
How thinking about the future, you mean?
Yeah. Ask yourself, how will I feel about this problem next week, next month, next year? It kind of shrinks the problem down, highlights that emotions usually don't last forever, gives you perspective and hope.
Right. Pulls you out of the immediate intensity.
Yeah.
What about going to the past?
That's about anchoring yourself, thinking about past challenges you've overcome, or even hardships your family endured. He used the example of his grandmother surviving World War II.
Wow, yeah. That puts things in perspective pretty quickly.
It really can. But a little caution here.
Okay.
If you tend towards self-criticism, comparing your current problem to, say, surviving a war could make you feel bad. Like, my problems are insignificant.
Ah, right. Could backfire.
Yeah. So the focus should be on the resilience shown in the past, the strength, using that as motivation. And if it starts feeling negative, just switch tools. It's about flexibility.
Got it. Be adaptable. So we've talked internal tools, external order.
Yeah.
What else about our environment matters?
Quite a bit, actually. Beyond just tidiness, think about visual cues.
Like pictures.
Exactly. Looking at photos of people you love, people who support you, research shows it can actually speed up your recovery from feeling distressed. It triggers those feelings of connection.
Simple, but makes sense. A visual reminder of your support system.
And then there's the huge one, nature, green space. He admitted he was a bit skeptical at first, being a city person.
Yeah.
But the evidence is overwhelming. Being in nature really helps emotional well-being.
I totally believe that. I remember taking a walk outside, even in the dark, when I got some bad news once, and it just helped somehow.
Yeah.
Cleared my head.
That's exactly it. Nature gently captures your attention. The sights, sounds, lets your focused, directed attention rest and recharge, so you actually have more capacity when you go back to the problem.
A mental reset.
Plus that feeling of awe you often get in nature. Looking at mountains, the ocean.
Yeah.
It creates the shrinking of the self, makes your problems feel smaller in the grand scheme of things.
That feeling of being small but connected, I get that. Definitely shifts perspective. Okay, what about some really quick, in-the-moment tactics when chatter flares up?
Yeah, he calls them rapid-fire tactics. Sensory stuff is big here.
Like music.
Music, definitely. It can shift your mood almost instantly without much effort. Sense two familiar smells can be really comforting.
I have my go-to calm down playlist. Okay, what else? Other people.
Yes, your chatter advisors. But how you interact is key. It's not just venting. There are two crucial steps for giving good support.
Okay, what are they?
First, listen. Really listen. Empathize. Validate their feelings. Connect. Make them feel heard.
Step 1. Connect and validate.
Then, only then, step 2. Offer perspective. Maybe suggest strategies or advice, but gently.
The order matters. Jumping to solutions feels dismissive.
Totally. And just being a sounding board without offering perspective can lead to co-rumination. You both just spiral down together.
Ooh, yeah, been there.
And crucially, ask permission before giving advice. Would you like some suggestions, or do you just need to vent right now?
That's respectful. He also mentioned doing a chatter advisor audit.
Yeah, thinking about who in your life is good at both parts, the listening and the advising. They might not be your closest friends or family necessarily. Build your board of advisors.
Interesting. Choosing your support team strategically.
Yeah.
What if we see someone struggling? How do we help them without being intrusive?
Well, if they ask for help, use those 2 steps.
Yeah.
Listen, then offer tools. Empower them with these strategies we're talking about.
Right.
But if they haven't asked, be careful. Unsolicited advice can feel like you're saying they can't handle it themselves.
Right. So what can we do?
Invisible support is one way. Helping out without making a big deal of it.
Like doing chores for them, ordering food.
Exactly. Or sharing useful resources generally, like in a team email or group chat, not singling anyone out. Hey, found this interesting article on managing stress.
Subtle. I like that.
And don't underestimate simple, affectionate touch, if appropriate, obviously. A hug, a fist bump. It releases calming chemicals.
Little things that signal connection and support. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Whole toolkit. If someone listening wants to take one action after hearing all this, what's the most important first step?
Get familiar with the tools. Just understand what they are. Distanced, self-talk, rituals, time travel, using your environment, connecting with the right people. Learn about them.
Okay, step 1 is learning.
Then start experimenting. Try them out. See what works for you, what clicks, what gives you relief. It's personal.
Self-experimentation.
Yeah. And finally, share them. Pass these ideas on to people you care about, because chances are they're dealing with chatter too.
Learn, experiment, share. That feels really actionable.
Mhm.
It's actually quite hopeful, isn't it?
Yeah.
This idea that we can shift that inner narrative, turn the critic into a coach.
Absolutely possible.
Well, this has been incredibly useful. Thank you for breaking it all down.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff. And for you listening, really take these ideas on board. See which ones resonate, try them out, and yeah, share them around.
And remember, as Dr. Kross says, you got this. You can do this. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. Hope it gave you some real value.
Yeah, hope it helps.
We'll catch you on the next one.